We've got more information about this Sandra Bland case here in Texas. The person who reportedly committed suicide after being arrested for a very minor traffic offense, not using her turn signal. And of course, if you've seen the reports that we have at Infowars.com on our YouTube channel, you can see that we've got, I can't remember the guy's name. What's the guy's name, CJ, that does the reports about how to handle police encounters? Anyway, we'll get that name for you. But you can see the report there.
Larry Craig.
Larry Craig, thank you so much. Larry Craig talks about how to handle a police encounter. And he makes a very interesting point. He says when the police pull you over, most of the time, of course, they're looking for revenue, for traffic revenue, and that sort of thing. Most of the time, they really want to try to get you on some kind of a drug offense. That's really where the money is. And so this cop was very intent on getting her out of the car. She got very angry. She was arrested. She spent 3 days in jail. Then they said she committed suicide by hanging herself with some garbage bags tied together. That looks suspicious enough. Now it gets even more suspicious. To try to cover this up, because a lot of people are not buying that story, it doesn't sound very plausible. Now they come up with something else to try to make it sound more plausible, but it does just the opposite. Now they're telling us that it is some kind of a reefer madness that caused her to commit suicide. They say that she had a massive amount of marijuana that she smoked in jail. Remember, she's been there 3 days. They admitted her into jail. She didn't come into the jail with the marijuana. They would have checked her for that. But she's been there 3 days, then she hangs herself. Then they say she's consumed a massive amount of marijuana just before she hung herself. How does that get them off the hook? I really don't understand. They say, looking at the autopsy results and toxicology, it appears that she swallowed a large quantity of marijuana or smoked it in jail, and they didn't happen to notice either of those things. You know, stuff like this does happen in jail. It I think, underscores that we cannot stop drug use by incarcerating people. We have a lot of people in federal prison who die of drug overdoses every year because you can't stop people from using it even if you lock them up. So what kind of a society are we creating for ourselves when we try to stop drug use, when we try to stop vice by use of a militarized police force? It simply doesn't work. But I don't believe that's the situation in this particular case. They say, and this is the report from Met Press, in terms of summarizing it, they say the officer seemed to be more interested in searching Bland in her vehicle. He indicated he would let her go with a warning, but he wanted her out of her vehicle to do a search. Things turned ugly when she asserted her rights and refused to consent to the search or to put out her cigarette. You do have a right to refuse a search. When you're pulled over, you are under arrest. You're under custodial arrest. That has been proven over and over again and ruled on by the courts. I know that when we got arrested at AP Hill, Joe Biggs and I, the guy cynically said, no, you're not under arrest. And I said, well, then we're free to go. No, you can't go. They know that. They won't call it an arrest. They'll play semantic games with you. But this is absolutely amazing that they would now try to push this onto reefer madness. But we're seeing this happen everywhere. Even when they prosecute police officers for excessive force, for wrongful death, they get a slap on the wrist. Look at this situation here in L.A. A former veteran L.A. Police Department officer sentenced to beating a handcuffed woman who later died. She gets off with 20 months. 20 months. Which means that she's only going to serve 16 months in county jail. She's going to get credit for 3 months that she's already been in jail. She kicked, she shoved, she beat a woman who was handcuffed, and that's all she's going to get. Under cover of law. Why do we allow that to happen? Let's go to Tony in South Carolina. Tony. Hello, Tony.
Hey,
are you there? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. We're calling about the Sandra Bland death.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, 5-6 years ago, I was studying, Mises.org about Austrian economics. I watch videos by Dr. Block. And they brought up about, whenever the government prohibits something, it makes it scarce, which makes it expensive. And you're talking about marijuana. So I studied marijuana. No, I don't smoke. I don't, have anything to do with it. But during my studies, I found out that the marijuana plant has flowers and leaves. There are a thing called trichomes, which are little round balls that grow on those leaves at blossoming time. Inside that bulb, or the trichome, is tetrahydrocannabinol. But in its native form, the tetrahydrocannabinol is bonded or bound with a carboxylate molecule. Your body has receptors that receive THC.
That's right. Yeah, there's a lot of people who have talked about the health benefits of things like cannabis oil and other things like that. We had a representative here in the state of Texas, David Simpson, who floated a bill and said, look, marijuana is a natural substance. We don't need to have any regulation of it any more than we need to have a regulation of potatoes, for example. We should remove all mention of it from the code. I think, Tony, the problem, you mentioned Austrian economics, and of course the economics of prohibition, you understand that as well. I think when we see places where they have decriminalized marijuana, they haven't really decriminalized it. What they've done is they've put in a very complicated code, very much like the IRS code that we talked about earlier in the show, where they can go in with a complex law and use that to entrap people. You know, one of the things that we've heard for a very long time is that any law that is sufficiently complex is the same as having no law at all, just as we see with the IRS constantly. We see that it is so complex, as Rand Paul was setting fire to it, trying to cut it with a chainsaw, with a wood chipper and everything. He's talking about, look, it's 70,000 pages. It's like, who can know what is in this code? It is simply an instrument of social control. It's not about revenue. It's simply about controlling you. But what was the point that you wanted to make with Sandra Bland?
Well, the point was, I was getting to it, or wrapping it up so people understood it, is that the carboxyl atom blocks the THC receptor from receiving the THC. So without removing that carboxyl atom, by converting it, you don't get high. You don't get stoned. You don't get reefer madness. You don't go crazy. You can remove that carboxyl by heat of 170 some odd or 180 degrees and up. You can remove it by oils and alcohol. So how did this? I mean,
so do you buy the idea that she got reefer madness and killed herself? Because we're running out of time. We've got to go to break. Now I want to go back to Tony in South Carolina. We were talking about Sandra Bland and the likelihood as to whether or not the reason she committed suicide, as the police say that she did, was because she was on reefer madness. Real quickly, Tony, because we got a lot of people online. I want to get to everybody. Tell us what you think about Sandra Bland. Do you buy the line from the police that she committed suicide because of marijuana when she was there in the jail for 3 days?
Well, Dave, I'm very skeptical about it because you can eat 15 pounds of marijuana and not get a buzz. Yeah. So that wouldn't make her go nuts and kill herself. Mm-hmm. So if the autopsy shows that she consumed it, where did she get it from? In either case, They wouldn't have gotten her high and stupid.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's not the sort of thing that makes people. I'm not like you. I'm not a marijuana user, but I've read enough about it, talked to enough people about it, that I know that it doesn't make you suicidal. It doesn't make you go out and shoot people. It is not reasonable. And the fact that she was there for 3 days, and they say she was smoking it in such quantities that she committed suicide. I mean, that really raises a lot of red flags.
Brain Force is here. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on this the last few months. You probably noticed I've been more crazed, more focused, less brain fog, more energy, more special reports, and it's because of Brain Force.
One of the worst things with most energy products is it's not sustainable, right? You're gonna crash afterwards. And the cool thing about this is it's not just a bunch of energy compounds that are gonna fire your brain up to a higher RPM or whatever, which it does do. This is sustainable. This isn't going to spike and you're gonna collapse and you're gonna feel really bad afterwards. This has a bunch of different antioxidants and compounds and polyphenols.
Everybody's on these drugs to knock their brain out because the brain's so fried.
We kept changing this formula over and over and over again until it became sort of a grand puzzle. For example, the L-theanine inside of it, that is activated by the different compounds in the yerba mate that we put inside of it as well. This just increases the compounds you already have.
This is what you're actually designed to run on.
Exactly.
It's kind of like a car will run on one form of junkie gas, but it runs really good on what it's designed for.
And that's the principle of InfoWars Life, as far as I understand, that you've always had, is that it's not about synthetic chemicals and forcing actions. It's about letting your body do its own thing and giving your body the tools it needs to create these different compounds that are super valuable and super beneficial. We've all been dumbed down, whether we know it or not. There's always hidden additives in your food. Even organic food has hidden additives. I mean, we're looking at the television screen, at least, for research purposes, whatever we've been doing, trying to learn something, or staring at the computer all day, working, doing good, you're still damaging your brain.
You will find Brain Force, Survival Shield X2, and other game-changing products at InfoWarsLife.com.